This episode of the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast is brought to you by Vesperio. Vesperio's Performance Academy offers custom-tailored solutions for service advisors and leaders. From the people who help you know your competition, InteliChek presents the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. The Multi-Point Inspection Podcast brings you news and stories from the automotive world told in an informative and entertaining way. With over 27 years in the automotive industry, starting as a technician and working his way up to fixed operations director of a top 40 automotive group, Jim Bernasek knows what makes fixed ops tick.
I've been in the automotive industry, fixed ops, pretty much my entire life. My grandparents owned some independent stores and so on. And I've always been a big believer in the numbers of the business, but also people, educating people and going through, making sure that they understand our business.
He also knows that high turnover rates are crippling the industry.
The turnover in our industry it's absurd. I mean, we have one of the highest in any industry in the country for turnover. And the real reason I believe, and that I've done my research, is because of the lack of awareness and education for those individuals to go and grow up into management.
So Jim decided to do something about it.
There had to be an easier way and a better way to display the information, the awareness to these people. We really try to develop the system around dealers in a sense, meaning what is most important to you. We have the reports that are very vital to what you need to run your fixed op business, whether you're an advisor, a technician, whether you're a fixed op director, service manager, parts manager, GM. It displays those specific information to your business so you can really concentrate on what needs to be fixed at that time. But not only needs to be fixed, but fast. Just point, click, we see it, it's red, go after it, and get it done.
In this episode of the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast, I speak with Jim Bernasek and Josh Paul of Chameleon Limited and Trent Hochschild of Corwin Auto Group.
So I'm Jim Bernasek. I am the founder and CEO of Chameleon Limited.
My name is Josh, and I am the Director of Dealer Support and Engagement for Chameleon Limited.
My name is Trent Hochschild. I'm the Corporate Director of Fixed Operations for Corwin Auto Group.
Trent Hochschild.
I've been with Corwin for 6 years and been in my current role as a Corporate Director of Fixed Operations for 3 years Monday. Basically, what I do is I oversee all aspects of parts and service for our group. So I work all with our parts and service managers to make sure that they have the tools that they need. I support them in the business side of things, making sure that there's opportunities to grow within a specific area in the group. And then I also work with our general managers and ownership on the administrative side of things. I met Jim quite a while ago. I used to work for a manufacturer. We got to know each other through that. And then when he started the Chameleon company, we were talking one time, and in the fixed operations side of the business, we're always looking for tools that can allow us to keep things in front of our employees and give them the tools to work on the business. So many times we get stuck working in the business, but not necessarily working on the business. When we started looking at this, I think this was even before Jim actually really launched it. I went over to his house. He's like, "Hey, I got to show you this thing. I think you're going to really like this. It's completely different. Nobody has it." He showed it to me. I'm like, "Man, Jim, you got something very, very special in the fixed operations side of the business. Like, there's nothing out there that even is remotely close." So Jim and I kind of did a pilot to kind of start the product out. We did 2 or 3 stores. Within probably 3 or 4 months, we had all the stores on it. And to this day, it is still one of the products that we use the most. In every one of our 20 group meetings that we talk about, Jim helps us put some slides together that pulls data from the tool. We use those slides in our meetings to look at where our business is and where our business can be. The great thing about Chameleon and the TimeAI product is the ability to, like what Jim's logo or motto is drive change. What the tool does is it's not just about putting the numbers out there, it's about driving change. So what's causing that, and what are you going to do to change it to get a better outcome or get better profits or better whatever metrics that you're looking at? We've been able to go to Jim and say, "Hey, we would love to see this or that." And Jim and his team are always really on top of looking at it and making the different reports or different things that we need in order for us to specifically on our business get better. And so just the changes from 2 years ago to now when the company started, it's unbelievable the change that they've had.
Josh Paul.
I've been with Chameleon, working with them for over 2 years, but in a full-time capacity, about 2.5 years, right, Jim? Somewhere in there?
Yeah, it's been the longest 2.5 years of my life.
Good. I'm glad. I am glad. That was part of my job description when I came on, in fact, to stress Jim out. Oddly enough, our CFO, Kelsey, has been a family friend of mine since childhood. I grew up down the street from Kelsey and her family and have always kept in contact with them and been friends. And when I heard about Jim's Chameleon and what he was doing with it, I was very interested in it, even though I was never really in the automotive industry. I've always been a car guy, but never worked in the industry. And I thought it was really cool. And when I actually saw what he was doing before it was even launched, I told Jim, I said flat out, I said, I want in. Like, whatever I can do for you, I'm there. Like, just put me in, coach. I come from an IT background and customer support. I've helped large companies run their call centers and support centers. I've also done IT hardware work and things like that and sales. So I kind of have a jack of all trades background in IT and support. I've kind of come on and helped fill a lot of different parts of the business and, stress Jim out first and foremost.
So, Brandon, if I can add to that a little bit, one of the things about our company is we only want people to work with us that have passion for people. And it's all about the passion for the people that are out there and the support. And Josh's knack for being able to help people, identify them, communicate with them is second to none in what we've seen in the auto industry. And as he said, he had no auto industry experience. So it was just almost a natural fit as talking to him and seeing him interact with people and doing that. That's one of the things. Josh is very vital to our company on the customer support side.
So I am always curious to know the circumstances surrounding an entrepreneurial venture like this. Like, how did you make this happen? What was your mindset during this time?
So I was a corporate fixed op director for a large auto group, and I had a full-time job with that. It was probably 2 years while I was still working full-time for that auto group. And then, nights, weekends, my two partners who are the IT data side, we worked, long days and hours, after work, because there's 4 of us that started the company, which is, as they alluded to, Kelsey, who is actually my wife as well. She's the CFO, and by nature, she owns a tax and business book company as well. And then I have my 2 partners, Zach and Nick, that are the brains behind the IT side of it. And we all had full-time jobs. And through those 2 years, we were very committed to making sure, as soon as we got done with work, we'd jump on in our home offices. We'd be on together. There was nights 2:00, 3:00 in the morning, right? Going through things, and then weekends getting through, which you could probably understand, with 2 startups that you started, just constant. But we have the passion for it, and we knew that this was going to help dealers get out there. So we just kept going at it. So yeah, that was my occupation during that time. I'd be lying if I said that there weren't challenges because, think about this. We also, during that time, we went through COVID. COVID was a really rough time for the dealers, as Trent can really allude to, on that side too as well. Going through that and then trying to do the startup and then have the company. But I got to tell you, the support, it was just amazing, where if I even got down in headspace like, hey, this is just too much, we can't do this. I had, guys like Trent, for example, right? I had guys, I'll call it like Jim McLaughlin. He's another corporate fixed op director. Like, no, you got to keep going. The 2 partners are like, no, man, we got into this because we believe in not only you, but what this is going to do because of the research that we've done. And, even before we started development on the actual program itself, we did probably a year of just constant research, right? Okay, what is needed out there? What systems are out there? What are their great points, right? Every company out there has some great features in there. And then what are their weaknesses and what can we do to help these dealers on that side of it? So the positive energy that I had from everybody, from family to friends, workers, all that stuff, I mean, it was just amazing.
So I asked Jim if he has always had that entrepreneurial spirit.
You always want to work for yourself, own your own business, right? And I did venture down that road, and I was in a consulting. I own my own consulting company at first. Dealership SOS was my first. It stood for Dealership Service Operating Solutions. And I had that company. And as a consulting business, the first year is really rough, right? Because you're just basically trying to get out there, trying to do it. And then after that year, it finally starts to kind of take off. And then I had met, well, I already knew Trent, but then he had introduced me to the group that I worked for almost 9 years. And I ended up taking that. So to answer that question, have I always wanted to be an entrepreneur? Yes, right? And like everything, if you don't have passion for it, just because there's a need for something, yes, you can create a company and you can do something right and go out there and put it out. But the ones that are truly impactful are the ones that you have a need, but then you have people that have passion for it, right? And we all have passion for it. So that's how that ended up being. So yes, we found the need. We knew that there was a need out there. Now we just had to take that passion and that need and then build that core of what we did.
So what does Chameleon do?
We had an executive for a large group that's on our system and does the other aspects of our company, which is the warranty side of it, warranty, labor rate, parts rate submissions to the factory for increases. Well, this executive, he probably gave us the best testimonial that's out there. And Josh and I, we've kind of used this and we've looked at it. He said, the biggest thing I can say about Chameleon, TimeAI especially, is he goes, just really put it in perspective of it's like having a fixed operations expert consultant, as well as the personal assistant 24/7, giving you the reports, telling you where it's at. If you're on a phone, you're on an iPad, you're on wherever, you can see this information at any point in time. You don't have to be at the dealership, right? So I think that was kind of our best testimonial in a sense, because it really does sum up what TimeAI is. And maybe Trent, Josh can either disagree or say something, but it's really giving you, again, the important critical information at a fast glance of, okay, what needs to be done? What do I need to concentrate on right now? What's important? What's not? What can I work on later? Right from the expense side. I think the financial statement, what we call AI statements, is probably one of our biggest features used by people like Trent, the GMs, the executives. Okay, having a financial statement is great. And you see all these lines and you see all the numbers. But you can instantly look at ours and it tells you right away, okay, which one are we really bad in, right? It's red. It tells you where you're based on, what your benchmarks are. Like Trent goes into each store, right, and puts what the benchmarks that he wants, not only for the expenses, but also for performance for advisors, for technicians, for other stuff, open ROs, what they want, what's the benchmark that they want open, and so on. So those types of things are really what is important to me on that side, because again, it's that critical learning of what's important and doing on that. Josh, you talk to our customers daily. I mean, what would you say on that?
Oh, coming from my standpoint of it and not being an expert in this stuff myself, our customers call and they're like, what is this? Where's my numbers for this, that, or the other? I can look at TimeAI and I can instantly tell them. Going in through that, I can show them within 3 clicks of what RO it's on, with the line of the RO that it's on, and who's attached to it. And then going back and look at that advisor's records and see all the repairs they're attached to. One of the things that I first noticed about it, even in its early inception, I, not knowing a thing about the fixed ops industry, that I've learned quite a bit in the past 3 years. But back then, I knew nothing of it, but I could tell that it would be super intuitive and very easy for anybody who's not very technologically savvy to just look at it and know what's good, what's bad, where to look, where to click. And it's like Jim always says, everyone in the fixed ops game has ADD. So you're not spending a lot of time in there. We have what we call our 3-click rule, where you can look at the dashboard and then you have 3 clicks to get to an individual RO, that digital copy. And that's kind of one of those unheard of things where we can not only save the customer time, we can also help them increase their revenue. Usually you spend more time creating revenue. Well, in our case, it's a little bit different, and it might be braggy or kind of sales pitchy, but it's the truth. I'm going to out myself as a nerd here, but if anybody's ever watched the show Game of Thrones, there was a really neat speech by one of the main characters in it, and he was talking about what's the greater number, 5 or 1, and he holds up his hand and he says 5 or 1, and he's basically saying that when you have all 5 on the same team going for the same goal, that 1 is the bigger number than 5. And with TimeAI, you can put your whole team on the same page, and you can all focus on the same goal together. It's really kind of like a win-win-win situation.
Yeah, and to go on the features, Brandon, Trent alluded to this too earlier, and we take this very, very seriously as our customer, not only support, and that's why Josh he's the director of dealer support, but the more important word in that title is engagement. So he's engaging and talking to the dealers like Trent, and they've been very helpful with adding things to the system or revising it, right? What we don't want to do is we don't want to overwhelm them with data, because that can be bad too, right? Because when you overwhelm somebody with data, it just becomes, okay, man, there's so much to look at. There's so much things to do. But it's like, okay, what is important to dealers? For example, we never had like a labor grid or a matrix in our system. And we took the time, and Trent and his team and then another group, we talked to them consistently, had them on Zoom saying what part of these features would be good that you would like to have in there. What are the weaknesses of the other companies that have something like that? And then we build it out and we go through there and then we add to these. We are very open to dealer engagement, right? Saying, hey, what do you want? We want to hear this. I mean, every time, Trent will probably tell you, every time I talk to him, it's like, okay, hey, Trent, what sucks? Right? Excuse my language, but it's like, hey, what sucks? Because it's great to hear all the good things, right? Take business out of it. The only way any of us ever get better in life is to know what our negatives are, right? So we can overcome them and we can get better on them. So I'm always asking that stuff because it's like, what can we do to get better? Okay. And then my follow-up question is, okay, hey, how do you want that displayed? How would we do that, right? And then we have our dealers actually work with our customers and say, okay, hey, talk to them, right? See what they're saying. Because again, IT guys, and my guys will laugh at this, and I say with Josh too, is they're all nerds, right? They're not really people persons in a sense, right? They don't go through that. But it's mandatory for me. No, if you're going to be part of our company and you're going to be an owner of our company, you have to engage with the customer, because the only way you're going to learn the reason why this is important to them is to actually talk to them and see them do things. So I took a trip one time to one of Trent's stores with Trent, with my CTO of the company. And Trent, well, we sit in your conference room with your service manager, parts manager, your GM came in, and we literally went through and said, okay, hey, Trent, I want you to show them what you do every day. I want them to see what you do, how you do it, so they understand the importance of making sure that this isn't 15 clicks to get to this number, that it's a maximum of 3, right? Or why is it important to even display this number? So it might take us 6 weeks to research and develop, okay, Trent and his staff would like to see this number, but it's nowhere in anything. But how can we come up with this number to make it visual, right? So we do a lot of that stuff with our dealers and clients, and it's very important to me to do that.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. So one of our Toyota stores had a report that they were looking for. Literally, they went everywhere. Nobody could get this report for them. I got on the phone with Jim. Jim had Zach get on the phone, and this is exactly what we're looking for. This is where the data is, and then Zach went in, pulled the data, said, this is what I see. What do you want it to look like? And the company is now using it not only in our stores, but looking to use it in other Toyota stores for their express program. So very, very responsive on if you want a change or you want to see something. Actually, I was at his office one day and brought in the IT guys, and they brought up, all these different numbers. Me and Jim had no idea what we were looking at, but they did. and you won't see that in other companies. Most companies, it's a cookie cutter deal. This is what our program does. Well, can I see it this way? Nope, this is what it is. And Chameleon is very, I wouldn't say customizable, but very open to how they can put different parts of what we need into their program.
So, Brandon, I'll end with this. Our slogan is driving change. Everything we do when we start our company meetings every Wednesday, every person's involved in our company meetings. And the first statement that we always say is, okay, what can we do today to drive change? Now, driving change is not just for our clients. Driving change is also for us. And having great clients and engaging with those clients also drives change for us, right? Making sure that we're driving change in the right direction and what needs to be changed for the betterment of employees, customers, right? Because it all rolls down to the customer at the end of the day. So we want to make sure that we're driving that change so that customer gets the better end of their experience in the dealership when they go there.
We'll talk how Chameleon keeps people honest, what Jim sees as he looks to the future, and more after a word from our sponsor. The Vesperio Performance Academy offers custom-tailored solutions for service advisors and leaders. We allow you to select exactly what you want based on your store's needs. After taking our customized learning path survey, we use those results to tailor a learning path specifically for you. You'll have access to our complete learning library, and you can test what you've learned with our knowledge checks. And for managers, our easy-to-use admin dashboard allows you to easily see current activity from your team and access reports quickly. Vesperio's Performance Academy promotes advisor and manager engagement and communication by including the manager after every concept an advisor completes. Vesperio also allows users the ability to add custom dealership assets and processes that all live in one location. To get a look inside the Performance Academy or to get your team started today, go to Vesperio.com. That's Visperio.com.
One of the parts of Jim's business is warranty labor rates, right? So we always do an analysis prior to us getting ready to submit for warranty. So just yesterday, John, the guy that does the warranty submissions for Jim, on behalf of us, brought up, that one of our stores was just a very small increase. And I'm like, man, this just doesn't look right. So I said, send me over the analysis. He sent me over the analysis. Literally within 5 minutes of being on a call with my service manager, using TimeAI, we were able to identify that although the advisors aren't supposed to have the ability to change the sale amounts, and that's what you're referring to, changing sale amounts, one guy did, and they got it during the CDK outage. And surprisingly, the service advisor never told anybody that he had this ability. And we identified a bunch of ROs that were being changed. And that's literally what the tool does, is it allows us to go in very quickly and identify things like that are impacting our overall business, right? So I didn't want to take over that conversation, but I wanted to share an example of how that tool was able to help us specifically find the changing sale amounts, how that can help us. So that's just one example of many, many that I could share of what the tool helps us to mentor our service managers and parts managers.
Yeah, so Brandon, that was a great analogy on what you had called the opcode side, changing the opcodes, right? We call it opcode sale override, and it shows the positives and it shows the negatives. So every time somebody changes what a repair is set up to be at dollar value wise, it will then show you and display that so you can see. And you can, again, our system can break down by employee, you can break down by repair orders, you can break down really any detail. And I would venture to say this is going to be a kind of an ego thing, is we have yet to really see. And when we talk to all of the dealers that we help doing demos and doing that stuff, the one thing that stands out is they say that the level of detail that you guys have is just what sets you apart, because knowing that you see the number that's there and you can see that, okay, we got these exceptions, then you can instantly drill down and then say, okay, who is the problem? Is it one person? Is it everybody? Is it there? So you can instantly drill down into that. To go back to your avoided repair orders, yes, that is one of the big things in our system that was put in because when you're in a position of being a fixed op director, unfortunately, you have people that are not always very trustworthy and do the right thing, right? And that's the unfortunate side of just society, right? But we need to be able to see that stuff. Well, in voided repair orders, what happens is a lot of people do not look at voided repair orders that often because there's always an excuse of, hey, we voided this because the customer came in and then 10 minutes later they said they had to leave. So then we just voided out the repair order, right? I believe that nothing should ever be voided. You should always put some type of note on it, right? Like that customer, you could put on there, customer had to leave, is going to reschedule. So now you have history of it. And we know that that happened, right? What we did is we displayed right on the dashboard the voided repair orders, but we also capture everything that's ever been on that repair order. So when you look at the voided repair orders, if it's 0, then that means that, okay, that ticket never had anything on it. It was voided, but it gives you the ability as a Trent, as a GM, as an owner, to ask questions. Why was this voided, right? So I'll use an example of what you're probably talking about on Russell Hills. We have a large group that has a very large express center, and they do a $50 oil change for people that have that loyalty, that have bought 2-3 cars with them or something. It's a $50 straight out the door, which I've never heard of this. I mean, which is fantastic, I guess, if it builds retention, right, to do that. It's with taxes, everything, $50. They were on our system for about 2 days, just launched. Well, the fixed op director called me and said, hey, I got you on speakerphone with our service director at the store, and we're seeing all these voided repair orders, and some are 0, but some have $50 on them. And we go into the DMS and it shows $0 on them. Well, that's because you have to remove everything off of them to void it. Then what ends up happening is I said, well, at some point there was $50 on those tickets. So somebody went in and removed that stuff from there. You need to find out why. They did some research. About 2 days later, the fixed op director called me and said, he goes, I got to tell you, I kind of love you, but I hate you too, because, employees are hard to find. And I had to terminate 2 employees because at that $50 level, customers would come in and pay $50 cash. Well, then what they would do is they would go in, they'd pocket that 50, and then they'd void that ticket out and nobody's looking at it. Well, when are you ever going to figure that out? At the end, when you do your parts inventory count, you'll finally find out that, man, we're low on this or we're missing this, right, in oil, because we'll use that example specifically. The oil gets put back into the inventory, but the actual volume is not there, right? So now how do you drill down to find out where I lost all that? Because now that's at the end of the year that you're doing that inventory, or end of the quarter, whatever that they do it, and you don't know. Now you have that ability to see that. Same thing. So we had another store, a single point store. They had a technician and service advisor that were doing side work, and they would bring the car in. They would actually write the ticket up, and it would just say check inspection, and then they would void the ticket out afterwards. And there was $500-$600, whatever that was on there. And then the customer would pay them on the side to do that. And they had to terminate a used car technician and an advisor for doing that. Now, those are the negatives. I hate talking about the negatives because those are what I call the 1%ers, right? You have 1% that is just going to always be that way. But there's also a lot of positives for that too as well. And go back to one that Trent had said is when he was talking about the opcode side, right, where they're changing that. Well, originally, Trent, if you remember, because you guys were a big part of this, I believe it was you and David from the Kalispell store, we displayed the opcode sale overrides, but we only did the negatives, remember? And then Trent had come to us and said, hey, I'd also like to see when they increase that dollar amount, because that could be just as bad as removing money. Yes, removing money, you're discounting and you're benefiting the customer in a sense, right? So you can argue that, okay, they're benefiting it, but they shouldn't have the ability to do that without authorization, right, from somebody to be able to do that. But Trent made a really, really good point that adding money, that means that an advisor is just going rogue and just charging what they want. And then that customer leaves, and we always call it, the silent exit, right? The customer doesn't fill out a survey and tell you what happened, or the customer, they just leave. And those are the hardest customers to get back because you have no idea what you did wrong. Well, it could be because of the fact that, a brake job is supposed to be $295. Well, that advisor, because they're paid on sales, they ended up charging $50 more. Well, then that customer goes back and looks and says, man, last time I did it, it was this dollar amount. Now it's this. why? Or my daughter went in, 2 weeks later and we had the same car and it was the same price. So those are the types of things that, yes, that's why we want to make sure we display that stuff, because we want to make sure that you keep your customers, the retention is there, and policing it is kind of a good term on that, right? Because you need to inspect what you expect, right? And that's what our tool gives you the ability, is to always inspect everything that you are expecting out of your business in those important areas.
Like Jim said, when he was putting together that part of TimeAI, that changing the op codes, I use the analogy when you take your car in for service and you're out front and your neighbor comes over and is like, hey, I like your Tundra. Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, you got one too. How do you like it? Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I take mine into service. And then you start talking. And if you have an advisor that is charging different amounts, it's a huge black eye on the business, and you can't overcome that. Like sometimes we'll get the call and say, hey, I was in a week ago and I had this done, and now my buddy came in and had the same service. What's going on? I think that's important just as much as the negative as the positive on that.
And according to Josh, Chameleon also helps to identify lost opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Once someone like Trent goes in and sets their store's benchmarks for how they want it, the advisor and the technician can see plain as day where they've lost an opportunity to make more revenue. And that only helps the technician and the service advisor to spot it quickly and be able to capitalize on that. And they're not only being more productive, but they're also increasing their paycheck as well. They're winning if they're just following along.
Yeah, I always say pay plans dictate performance, right? We all can agree with that, especially when you're in a sales-related position. Trent and I are on the same page with this. It's the KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, right? You get these managers that just try to create these pay plans that are so overwhelming and 50 different metrics, and they got to do things and manipulate and go through. As what Josh was alluding to on that lost opportunity is, let's say that they're paid on a bonus for $1 per ticket, or maybe exceptions or anything like that, discounts, right? Well, what ends up happening is it shows right on their dashboard that here's where you're at, and it's red, yellow, or green, and then they can see what the benchmark is. But right underneath it, no clicks, no nothing, it shows them lost opportunity, meaning that, hey, if you would have been at your benchmark, you would have sold $6,000 more in labor sales, $4,000 in part sales. Well, they can now equivalent that back to their pay plan and a percentage that they get. Here's how much money I lost. So it makes it much easier for a manager to sit down with them and say, okay, hey, yes, you're coming to me saying you need more money. You want more money, you're going to leave. Well, let me pull this up real quick and let me show you this month, or let's go back for the past 3 months to show where you could have made at least this amount of money. And then it will help instruct that and get that motivation going.
I asked Jim where he'd like to see Chameleon in 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we want to see, obviously, the company grow, but we want to see as many people on the system and drive change in the industry as much as possible. I would love to see that turnover rate go from the high 30% to low 40s down to the 20s. So if in 5 years from now, we look and we are doing really well and we're in 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 stores, whatever that is, and we had a help in driving change in that turnover number, I will look at this as success, no matter how much money we make or how little money we make.
I'd like to thank Josh Paul and Jim Bernasek of Chameleon Limited, as well as Trent Hochschild of Corwin Auto Group for this most excellent interview. You can find the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps with the algorithm thingy. Executive producers for the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast are Melissa Marlette and Joe Gibson. It is written, produced, and narrated by me, Brandon Barnett. This episode's featured music is So Stupid by Cast of Characters. And check out the full uncut interview on InteliChek's YouTube channel, where we talk Chameleon's new parts dashboard and we get into a debate over PCs versus Macs. This episode was made possible thanks to a proud partnership with Vesperio, which provides tailored solutions to ignite automotive dealership fixed operations, performance, and profit.